110, we're going to talk about symmetry. So a figure has a line of symmetry if it can be divided in half so that the halves are mirror images of each other. So if I cut this triangle in half right where I have that red line, you can see the two halves are exactly the same. So for a figure to have a line of symmetry, when we split it in half, those lines have to be exactly the same. So my first question asks, this rectangle has how many lines of symmetry? Well, we should be able to see right away that we can split it there. So that's one. If we split it here, that's half, so that's two. Some people might say, well, what if we split it diagonally? Well, if I fold that over, is that going to line perfectly together? No. But so even though these two parts are the same exact size, when we fold it over that line of symmetry, they have to exactly line up perfectly. And since they don't, that's not a line of symmetry, and that means that that's not a line of symmetry. And if you think about it, there's no other ways besides going here and here that we can split that rectangle up. So, how many lines of symmetry do we have? 2 lines. So, the next question says, which of these triangles does not appear to be symmetrical? So, which one does not have a line of symmetry? Well, if we look at A, I can go straight down, those 2 line up. And actually, this one has a few lines of symmetry in it. Okay? So, an equilateral triangle has 3 lines of symmetry. If we look at B, well, if I go from this point down, that's not going to split it up nicely. If I go here to here, that's not going to split it up nicely. If I go from this point and cut through, well, that's not there. Fold that half, that looks like it's going to line up. So I'm saying A and B are good, and that C's are one that doesn't work. Well, let's check. If I go here, doesn't work. Here, doesn't work. Here, okay, it's close, but notice how this one's a little longer than the other one. Okay? If you look, that doesn't completely fold over and line up. Therefore, which one's not symmetrical? That's going to be C. C does not work. Now, we're going to talk about rotational symmetry. A figure has rotational symmetry if the figure reappears in the same position as it is turned less than a full turn. So, like, if I have, before we get to this, let's say I have a little square here. If I turn this, okay, as I'm turning, I'm actually going to put a little X on this to help you see it. Okay, so we know which side is that. So as I'm turning this, pay attention to where, oh, my X isn't going to stay there, but as I turn it, notice how the one side, when I go here, that X should now be on this side. And it still looks exactly the same as when I started. Okay, it's from here to here, it looks the same. And then to here, and then to here, they all look the same. So this has rotational symmetry because looks the exact same, even though it's not in the same position. And with that being said, the example says which of these figures has rotational symmetry. Choose all correct answers. So if I turn that rectangle, let me see if I can get a rectangle up here. Get rid of... Get us a rectangle that looks like that one. Okay. So now I'm going to spin it. And if it lines up exactly the same, it has rotational symmetry. So as I'm spinning, notice where my little arrows are. That's where I started, and that's the bottom. Notice it lines up here, so it has rotational symmetry. Because it can go here and here. So A works. How about for letter B? Not sure I can get this. Well, it's kind of the same. Let's see if I can get this flipped. There. Okay, so it's pretty close. Okay, as I spin it, notice how when I get to here, it's in that same position from here to here. Therefore, B works. So A worked and B worked. C, I don't know if I have a shape I can use for C or not. I don't. But if I spun this, okay, I can draw it out. So if I spun it, it's not going to be the same there. If it's upside down, it's not. And if I flip it, it's still not going to be the same, so C does not work. D, I can get a triangle for D here, maybe. I can't. So we're just going to draw D2. Okay, so C didn't work. Now for D, if I pulled this down, it would look like that. That's not the same. If I keep spinning it, it would be this part. That's not the same. I spun it here. That's not the same, so D doesn't work. So the only ones that should have rotational symmetry are A and B. Remember, for rotational symmetry, it has to be in the exact same position but not turn all the way. So go ahead and do the practice set. One way to help with rotational symmetry might be to turn your book or paper as you're going, and that will help you see. Okay? So something to think about. So go ahead, do the practice set, make sure you bring any questions you may have to class.